Hello, everyone. So I got some nice images there on my title slide, yet sadly still no financial interest to declare. Slight warning, you've seen some great talks, great materials. My talk, if you're expecting rocket science, it's not going to happen. I'm just going to be dealing with simple scenarios. So everyday scenario here, put a subject in a scanner, guess that's what you do, acquire some DWI data, that's what all of you should be doing. Okay, some nice multi-shell data, whatever. We also acquire an extra B0 volume because we can use it for correction, highly recommended. And okay, voxel size, not that good, but that's how we roll in this domain. Nice pre-processing pipeline, highly recommended as well. I'll need it, so please do so. T1 weighted volume, just a single one, very fast to acquire, very easy, but a better resolution. That's good, okay. And we'll match it to the DWI data as well, of course. And then, first thing you'll do, whether you're acquiring multi-shell or not, you don't really care, you know you want to, you're gonna fit the tensor because you will want to see the DEC map. It's so pretty, right? Okay, for those of you who don't know, DEC stands for directionally encoded color, so it's a color map that you all know and love. Then you will probably use the Hardy shell because it's still pretty easy, you do CSD, obtain your FOD, whatever you like. Maybe you're quite advanced to multi-shell CSD, and it's multi-shell, so nowadays, lots of fun to be had with that. But, as I just said, it always starts with a good old DEC FA map. Since 1997 already. Navigation using the DEC FA map. Let's get this tackled. So here it is, pretty. I still know you love it. Here's the anatomical map, high resolution, but no colors indeed. So we're going to try to match them up. They're already registered. You probably see that. I hope you can see that, but we'll take a bit of a closer look. So let's look at this part, for instance. There's it on the other side. Can you match them up? It's not always easy, right, to match up those tiny details in the cortex, because on the left you have the lower resolution, on the right you have the high. So we're going to do a little bit of an interactive game here. Here's 6 boxes. Just pick one, whichever you like. You picked one? Okay, just focus on it. Really hard, really hard. Messes with your mind, doesn't it? So I just flipped the images, and can you still see where your anatomy was or where your colors were, depending on where you looked? Okay, we're going to do this again. Now you know what's going to happen. Just pick another one. Yeah, got it? Still difficult, right? Even though you were prepared. Maybe it was a bit better now. So, done with the boxes. Let's be a bit clever now. Just overlay the thing with transparency. In that way, we're not going to be messed up by switching back and forth. So it almost seems as if the colors are extrapolating, because we have some help. Maybe we can also interpolate the DEC FA. It's even better. Looks quite nice. Let's zoom in. It's quite good. Maybe it's just because I interpolated the DEC FA, so I'll get rid of the anatomical image. Oh, good lord, this is ugly, so I'll add the anatomical map again. And now it's very white. Yeah, the colors come a bit back. It's all nice. You're onto something, right? Well, sorry, people already figured this out in another domain. It's called Panchromatic sharpening. Not what I just showed you. I'll show you what Panchromatic sharpening really is. By the way, Pansharpening for short. A bit easier then. So people have used this already. I might have had financial interest if I was working in the satellite business a few years ago. They typically acquire high-resolution panchromatic images. Panchromatic is just black and white. High resolution for them is something else than for us, apparently. They also acquire, from satellites, multispectral data, and because of certain costs, bandwidth, financial costs, and other issues, they also do this at a lower resolution. This is like exactly the same problem we're having now in our domain, but they already came up with a solution. They just merge the two in a way that I will more or less explain for my data, and this is what you see then on Google Maps. You see a high-resolution color image, but it actually came from those 2 images that you saw before. Really, that's what they do in practice. So let's get this done on our data as well. We have this one, and we have this one. But we're not going to use the FA intensities. We're going to use the T1 weighted intensities. So let's get rid of the FA intensities, just the colors. Okay, we're going to upsample them, well, resample them to the grid of the T1, like this. But this is all pretty simple, not advanced, just cubic interpolation. And because of this, the norms of my DEC vectors can go a bit up and down. You might be able to see this. I don't know how clear it is, but you see some weird dark boundaries and sometimes something that is a bit brighter there. Well, if I normalize them again, you get this. This should be a little bit smoother if it works out on the projector. Now I'm going to weight these by the T1, so not just overlay, but weight them, multiply basically. This is what you get. Initial excitement is there. Nice boundaries. Look there, fornix, ooh, singulum. And then you look a bit further. Ah, ugly dots here, there. What's that? Red cutting through blue. No, not that nice at all. It's a bit ugly. So actually the issue here is with the DEC definition. It's because it uses the tensor. And we all know we moved on. And this is a bit annoying because I will be explaining this on Friday. But I need it now, so I'll give you a very quick summary of that one then. So with the tensor, we calculate the DEC of the first eigenvector, and that gives a bit of an issue. Let's say we have those two fiber distributions, very similar, neighboring voxels. This is quite common, right? But the eigenvectors point like this. So you get a DEC like this. So you'll see an edge in your image where there should not be an edge at all. Same thing in other situations as well. Like here, red lobe a little bit bigger than green. Here, the other way around. You also get this. These are pretty similar. These are not, so they don't reflect this continuum. Now, I came up with a new way to do this based on the FOD. So long story short, I'm going to integrate over all colors on the sphere and weight them by the FOD amplitude. Basically, I'll only be using the colors that you see in these lobes. And there's no red and green in there. There's just yellow in there, and this makes sense. And you get the continuum now. Same thing almost in this situation, you get this. So let's see how this works out in practice. Well, we had this one after all the pre-processing that I just described and before the weighting. If we do the same thing but based on the FOD, you get this one. So less saturation, but it's smoother. And now let's weight by the T1, and you get this. Now there's the difference. So you still have these high quality edges everywhere, but now this one is not inadvertently cutting through. You see a nice mixture. You see purple, because they're merely interdigitating. And in other places, you can probably see this as well. So we'll continue just with that one. That one is now, if you have followed all the titles, called the T1 Pansharpened FOD-based DEC map. I should probably come up with a sexier name at some point. These are some results. So I'll just let you look and interpret for yourself. This is at the level of the anterior commissure there. You can even see it. This is at the level of the posterior commissure. That's a bit pushing it, of course. Certain things that you can see is a nice delineation of the ventricles because of the T1. And nice delineations everywhere just because of the T1. It's the T1 you're looking at, just with some quite clever painting on it. So that's quite handy, because our interpretation stays the T1. It's not confusing at all. Here's two actual slices. So I would say enjoy the view. Again, the fornix is quite nice. You don't get that with your diffusion resolution, but you do get it with the T1. It's simply the T1. It stays the T1. It's easy to interpret. And the colors provide nice mixtures. For instance, here, you should see something that is yellowish, which is a mixture of something reddish and greenish. But at least it provides a continuum and no weird, fake, false boundaries. Other mixtures as well, for instance, here, are also pretty nice. Things that are interdigitating. You can now see them both if you do have the anatomical context, of course. That's important. Well, you can do now everything with it. Very pretty things as well. It's just one volume. That's quite handy. So this is a light box view. You can readily do this in MRtrix. It's very easy. You can scroll. Quite nice. Well, nice delineations. Corpus callosum is in there because it's in the T1. Just like that. You can do volume renderings as well. Again, MRtrix. This can be done interactively. Very cool, new feature. So basically 3 planes cutting through. It's a bit easier if it would be animated, but it's not, sorry. But, well, the colors are just splashed on there. And you do keep the context as well, because I only splash them on there in a mask of my diffusion data. And all the rest of the intensities are perfectly retained. Here again, you can nicely see the context is just there, because that's typically what we're also missing a bit in the diffusion data. And for an extra surprise, it's not really a reminder, because I haven't told you yet, but all these maps were actually only done using my hardy part of my data and using single tissue CSD. So this wasn't even using the multi-shell data yet. You can simply do this with quite common data that you might have lying around. So here we are again. Let's observe, oh yeah, well, cerebellum, also some nice details. Again, that corpus callosum, nicely interdigitating. And if after a while you do get confused, like, is this red brighter than that blue or than that green? And I still want to see my T1 intensities, I can simply switch back. And it's not as offensive. I mean, the context is still there. Certainly beats switching back to, this ugly one that we want to get rid of. So basically, here you see that the corpus callosum is simply broken, and I don't know if that's even still a cerebellum or a very big, disease. Okay, in conclusion, I presented to you Pansharpening, and I applied it to DEC maps. And I used the T1 anatomical maps, but I could use something else as well. It's quite interesting maybe for discussion. For this to work successfully, we introduced a novel DEC definition based on the FOD. And the result provides the best of both worlds, I hope. Angular information from diffusion data, higher spatial resolution from T1 weighted images for a nice visualization, nothing more than that. Finally, as you know, this was not rocket science. This was deliberately very unassuming in 3 or maybe even more ways. 1, the intensity, simply the map that you used. That's not confounded, you keep that. The DEC interpolation, no tricks, used in this case cubic interpolation, and for good reasons if you want to ask. And this is very close to my original data, not confusing at all. No learning, no nonlinear transfer functions, nothing of that, on purpose. And my DEC definition was also quite simple, even though it used a more advanced FOD. It made less assumptions, because the tensor assumes a single population. The FOD assumes nothing at all. So by this, I thank you for listening. If you want to keep track of me, you cannot scan this QR code, because it's not allowed in these rooms. And this technology will be available in MRTrix 3 soon, too. Thank you.